Before we get started with today's interview, just a quick reminder, click the thumbs up, make sure you subscribe, and ding the bell so that you don't miss any of the great interviews that we have coming up. Now, on to today's interview. Welcome back, everybody. Today, my guest is Diane Hidy. Her piece on the new National Federation of Music Clubs Festivals list is Windy Waltz. You can find it in her book, Attention Grabbers, Book 1, at fine music retailers near you. Welcome, Diane. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
So Windy Waltz is a lot of fun. I really enjoyed sight reading it. It gives our students another opportunity to experience 3/4 time, which is always a really valuable thing, as well as an opportunity to begin to learn to balance the hands a little bit. Talk to us about how we should go about teaching Windy Waltz.
I think the first thing to know about Windy Waltz is it follows the principles of Attention Grabbers, which is that they don't use key signatures until you absolutely have to have them. And my thinking in that particular decision is just that one of the things that really I find annoying about most method books and most music is right after a student learns to respond to an accidental on a note. So they've just sort of learned to find what a sharp means and kind of have their finger go up onto that black key. And yes, I know they're not all black keys, but at the beginning they are. Once they kind of get that sense of activation in their hand, you immediately remove the stimulus by getting rid of the accidentals on the note, and you put them in the key signature, and you make them sort of something that really they have to remember instead of something that they're responding to on the actual notes. And so when I wrote all the Attention Grabber pieces and everything that I still do for Compose Create, any of the things that I write, I stay without a key signature as long as possible. And the reason that I do that is to get students to feel comfortable responding to seeing an accidental on a note, one reason. And then the other reason is it helps them know which note to play. Because if there's always an F sharp in a piece, right? And that note always has a special symbol in front of it, then when they see the special symbol, they know that's actually their third finger up on F sharp. And I think removing that as a grounding piece of information and making it something that turns into being something kind of punitive. You were supposed to remember that from the key signature. Or like in this particular piece, it's a little piece in D major that doesn't ever use a C sharp. So putting it in a key signature with two sharps would be really, as far as I'm concerned, ridiculous because it doesn't actually add anything. It doesn't help them do anything, right? So you can do silly things like you can tell them every single time there's a sharp in this piece, it's an F. Can you find all of them? You can do things like that. Just turn things into a game. The next thing that I would do in this particular piece is just make sure they get it in their ear correctly. So they get dee-dum-bum, ba-dum, bum, ba, da, da, because otherwise they're going to play dee-dum, ba, da-dum, ba, da, 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 dee, da, dee. It's going to be annoying. But anyway, this piece is actually probably the hardest one that's in this book because more things happen at the same time. So it's actually got a little bit more coordination that has to happen between the hands. Sometimes what I will do is just take a Post-it note and block off everything except the first note of every measure. Something that I kind of like to do, and just have them practice the coordination between playing their third finger in the right hand and their fifth finger in the left hand, and then the fifth finger in the right hand and their thumb. Like just try those things first of all. What does that feel like? Is it the same part of your hand? Is it a different part of your hand? One thing I like about this piece is just because playing in the key of D major, in a D major 5-finger pattern is comfortable in both hands. It's one of the more comfortable places that you can play. And so it gives students at a very low level a chance to do something with a black key in it in a way that's not overwhelming or scary. It's just it's a sort of a small low end way to do it. So I always had a lot of success with this piece, but it is a little bit harder than the other pieces, even though this one does not have any eighth notes. And what makes it harder is not that it has an F sharp in it. I actually think that makes the piece easier than it would be if they were all white keys. It would be much more difficult. If this piece were either in C or in G, it would be much more difficult. The sharp actually helps you hold on to the piece.
That makes a lot of sense. Is there anything else you'd like us to know about Windy Waltz?
No, just play the accompaniments. because every time you play the accompaniment, it always helps students keep going and feel like you're making a more interesting piece out of it than they can do on their own. Although this one, in some ways, is not as important because there's just a baseline. I let, in this particular piece, the student actually plays with the accompaniment, and they stay in the same location that they play it without the duet. In other words, they still play it around middle C, and you just play a bass line that goes with it because there are more notes included in it. You don't really need a huge accompaniment, but I still do it with my students always.
My guest today has been Diane Hidy. Her piece on the new National Federation of Music Clubs Festivals list is Windy Waltz. You can find it in her book, Attention Grabbers Book One, from fine music retailers near you. Thank you so much for being here today, Diane.
You're welcome. My pleasure.